I think we start by my name itself. I think it throws people off. I know it throws even like Microsoft Word auto check, right? Because every time I type my name, it says delete repeated words. So I'll tell you a story about how my name came up. So my name actually, so I grew up in Sudan, in East Africa, and we don't have the first name, last name concept. We have what we call a full name, where basically your name is your given name, then your father given name, then your grandfather given name, your great-grandfather given name. So basically, when you say your name out, it becomes who you are, the son of who your father is, the son of who your grandfather is. So, and it's very common for firstborn sons to name them after your father, kind of like to honor your father. So I'm a firstborn son, and people in Sudan, as soon as I say my full name, they recognize that I'm probably a firstborn son because I'm named after my grandfather. So my name is Saeed Elfadil Saeed Latif in my passport. 15 years ago, I landed in Chicago, getting ready to start my master's. Blame it on jet lag, 10 hours flight from Paris. And then you get this immigration form. It says first name. So I have my passport, I have a pen, so I put first name Saeed, right? Middle name, so I put my father name, Fadil, right? Last name, so I look, okay, I put the other Saeed in my last name. They take the middle name out, they call me Saeed, and it throws everybody off. So I apologize for that. So I started, did my master's in computer science in Bradley University in Illinois in 2000. I joined a medical device company called Medtronic in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And actually, Dave was talking about the video about having medical device connectivity. I actually worked on those pacemakers. They used to develop software to allow pacemakers from patients' home to send back data on how the device is doing back to a physician office. Progress through software development, software project management, then moved to Stryker 4 years ago. The title in the agenda, again, has my title as a project manager. Typical Silicon Valley company. I've changed roles twice since I think first got working with SafeNet back in early 2014. So I started as a project manager, then moved to R&D management, and just recently, 2 weeks ago, I think it's my title now, the program manager. So the business realized that to be able to deliver a successful solution, it's not just the product, it's the whole operational process. So now I have more of a business role focusing on overall strategy to how to bring a product to the market. So with this, I want to talk a little bit about, it's a little bit quick, sorry. The agenda, just going to give a background of what Stryker is, what we do, and how we got here. Then a little bit about the healthcare industry. So what's interesting for Stryker is there were a lot of other drivers, some of them internal on how Stryker is moving forward, but a lot of them are external as well. So the healthcare market itself is reforming and reshaping and changing itself, and that is forcing Stryker and other medical device companies to react. So hence was the change. And then the evolution, the journey, we're still very early stages. Listening to the other presentations, we're probably still in the earliest stages of actually becoming a true software as a service provider company, but we have a good partnership with SafeNet, and it's very excited looking forward, and I want to share some of that with you as well. And then if we're able to answer any questions that you guys might have. So Stryker is a medical device company. The company was started back in 1948 by an orthopedic doctor in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Dr. Homer Stryker, who I think should have been an engineer, not a doctor, because he ended up building a lot of products to help himself better treat patients. If you guys ever saw the cast cutter, the one that cuts cast without cutting tissues, it was for his first invention. The walking wheel, that's back in the 40s, so the gentleman was a true innovator. So Stryker has grown and expanded since then. It's a huge medical device company. You guys could see from the numbers, Fortune 500, and the growth that company has been having. We have a different portfolio of products. As you guys could see, a lot of them are things, right? So the company, since the 40s, in over 28,000 employees, are really experts in building things, right? So what I mean things, it's actually devices. It's very hardware-centric that you build, you design, you ship, how you account for the cost, how you bill your customers, how you sell it. The whole process is very driven to building stuff, very hard to manufacture. So it's a huge company when you look at the volume of how products and what we do, but it's still probably a very small when it comes to actual software product development. So I have to lean back every time to see the slides themselves. So like I was saying, that the process itself is very focused and geared towards actual manufacturing of building devices. So we have product development of, you get an idea of a product. It starts by, okay, what's the next thing we want to build? How are we going to market it? How are we going to design it? How are we going to test it? And then how are we going to actually package it? How are we going to ship it? How are we going to receive it? How are we going to install it? How are we going to get that invoice? And how are we going to recognize revenue, right? So that workflow is very challenging when you want to drive software through that process. And that's some of the challenges that not only Stryker, but a lot of the medical device manufacturers going through the journey or the evolution, moving from being hardware-centric to actually software medical device companies. So these are some of the internal challenges. The external elements I was talking about, so you guys are all aware of the changes around us in the healthcare industry, right? So with the Affordable Care Act, hospitals are being very challenged. Medicare and Medicaid cutting down their reimbursements, changing their reimbursement models from how hospital used to be paid. Now it's a pay per performance. So right now a hospital, you can have $100,000 equipment in the room that part of your capital budget and you have purchased, but based on the new way of things are going from reimbursement, if you don't actually use it on the patient, you don't get paid for it. So now hospitals are becoming very sensitive to where they spend their capital budgets. So that's on one example. The other example is with the Affordable Care Act, the push to EMR and EHR, electronic medical records. So those two elements are forcing hospitals to whatever capital budget that they have to invest in EMR, because by certain years there is a regulation from the government to continue qualify for Medicare and Medicaid payments, which is probably ranges between 50 to 70% based on the hospital sizes of their actually income. If you don't have those EMR and if you don't show the efficient use, then you don't get paid. So whatever money they have, they just blindly drop in that bucket. So EMR companies are, if you guys are in stocks, you should buy stocks in EMR companies because they're doing very well right now. Hospitals are buying their products left and right. So that puts device manufacturer and other big capital type vendors like Stryker in a little bit of a tight situation because the capital budget that we usually go after is becoming smaller and smaller. With that, physicians and hospital or administrators themselves as general consumer users are now more and more exposed to software as a service, right? So basically, all the products that IBM and other companies are offering them, they're being educated, right? They've been entitled to seeing that for example, in my HP, right, I only pay for what I use. So how come you're charging me $100,000 for a set of equipment that I use maybe once or twice a month? So all those different elements are actually what made us as Stryker start looking into how we can actually try to provide software as a service, right? The hardware, and somebody said this early in the afternoon, the hardware is becoming commoditized. So the equipment we have, for example, if you think about scopes and digital capture system and digital recording, right? It's not becoming a true differentiator in the market. It is the software. It's basically how you partner with your physician or surgeon to better serve that patient. So these are basically the drivers that have made us recognize that there is a need for change. And the journey actually started, I usually describe this to people like bottoms up, but now the more I think about it, it probably starts somewhere in the middle management layer. So it's not truly bottoms up effort. So somewhere in middle management, teams got together and realized that it is time for change and it's time to look into software licensing. And the selling was going upwards to executive management. So we kicked off a pilot project evaluation. We had 3 vendors named. SafeNet was one of them. We ran pilot studies with and pilot small projects and trials with those 3 vendors. We had the decision matrix, like I think Laura had from the presentation. Should we build it ourselves, or should we go with somebody who is, an expert, right? it's very quickly it became evident that it's not our core competency, right? We are not a software licensing company, right? We're a medical device company. Our engineers, you were asking, where do you want to spend your engineers' money, right? Where do you want them to focus in? It was very evident that we don't want our engineers to focus building software licensing architecture, but really understanding that the use case is really helping the surgeon. So we wanted to focus our core competency on solving that problem and partner with somebody who's an expert in that technology. So that was some of the criteria that we had to go through. And through that selection matrix, we actually came to the realization that SafeNet was a good partner to actually embark in this journey on. So before I move into challenges and pains, I really want to talk a little bit about there was a lot of hand-holding. I think for those of you who are interested in trying out, can I bring this solution to my company? I would say give it a try. I think with SafeNet, the team that we work with has been amazingly in the support. There was a lot of hand-holding, like I mentioned. Basically, we didn't know what we don't know, right? You hear this all the time. But the SafeNet consultants knew what we didn't know and told us what you guys don't know yourselves. And they walked us through exactly how to prepare for such a solution. Not only from engineering, but from operations, accounting, customer service, finance, sales, all these different verticals in a product delivery system. They are touched and they are impacted by a software as a service solution. And I think SafeNet was great with their expertise to help us realize what those areas are. That being said, there are challenges and pains. So the current solution that we have, and I'll speak about the product that we're currently launching a SafeNet solution on top of. So we have this digital capture system that we actually sell to ORs. It enables surgeons in minimally invasive surgery to be able to document surgery, so to be able to take pictures, record videos, pull in patient information, send out the case information back to the hospital systems. And we have this box that we built and customers purchase, and there is a base software with a lot of hidden features. And then when a customer wants to activate a feature or wants to upgrade, what we do is actually, believe it or not, we actually get a dongle, a USB dongle that unlocks that feature, and we treat it like a product. So that USB dongle, you have to, build it, put the activation key in it, package it. It goes through operations, goes in a FedEx truck, take 3 days, gets to the hospital. Somebody has to grab it, go instead in front of that box, plug it in, and then that feature gets turned on, right? So there is a customer dissatisfaction that it takes. For them, they see the box there. But for a feature to appear on their screen, it takes sometimes a week based on the process that they go through to get that order in. And then there is the cost, right? So believe it, you take those for granted, those USB sticks. It costs Stryker Product almost like $400 by the time I actually make it a medical device product to get it to activate that feature. So all that cost, unfortunately, get passed on to hospitals, with our margins that eventually get passed on to us as patients, right? So,
to be fair, the $400 don't end up in our pockets, yeah.
So there is definitely a big business case there, right? I think one of the other challenges is we don't have a trial mechanism. So one of the, again, customers being entitled as they see in the consumer market, you want to try something before you buy it, right? So to be able to do a trial, a sales rep has to go through all that process to get a dongle, except that this time you have to, get that device back, shipped to Stryker so you can actually turn it off because we don't have a deactivation dongles. So there is all this messy of a process to do something that might, come across as very simple. And then on top of this, you add our FDA regulations from, verification and validation and different activities that you have to go through, and it just becomes painful to do work. So basically, we kicked off a project early in 2014 with SafeNet. And the goal of the project was simply to be able to, as first step, so we went through phases, right? The first step was just to replace this dongle activation mechanism, right? And the goal was that what we're able to do now is with this box, it talks to the Stryker cloud, right? Based on the SafeNet Sentinel cloud. And when a sales rep puts an order for any feature activation, that order actually gets fulfilled by the sales rep themselves instead of having to wait to get a dongle. They actually can go to the device, they can log in, and then they see all the sales they made for that hospital, appears on them in a portal in that box, and they can choose which feature they want to activate in this device. So all this effort was done by R&D teams. One of the other challenges is Stryker as a big corporation, IT is a separate corporate division. So, and we use Oracle. As I know some are asking about the Oracle inefficiencies. The system is really challenging to upgrade and maintain the Oracle ERP. So right now, we don't have the mechanism to be able to, when you have an order entered in Oracle, to be actually have that magically show up in the SafeNet cloud. What our engineering team has done, we wrote actually a batch script, like a script, that goes nightly, runs and sees all the orders for the SafeNet or the cloud-based licenses, and creates actually a CSV file every night, takes that CSV file, and then uses the web service from the SafeNet cloud and populates that in the Sentinel cloud. So to Oracle ERP, there is no software licensing, right? To IT, there is no software licensing. It is business as usual, but we're able to at least get that first step. So what we achieved through this is basically really getting buy-in from major stakeholders, because now people see it working. And then there are a lot of kinks in the system that you see and learn and adapt to. So for example, one of the challenges that came up and wasn't something on our radar was, for example, when do we recognize revenue? It's very simple. When you build something and ship it, right, then there is a customer has received it, then you call, on customer receipt, you can recognize the revenue. Or it's when they actually shipped, you get the revenue recognized. But right now, our accounting team had to actually change the processes and define, okay, when we sell software as a service, right, when do we recognize this as a revenue? Our operations, right, our operations unit, they log into Oracle themselves and they see all the orders that they have to build. What happens in the system when there's a software service that needs to be built? What is that? It's a phantom product to build. So what I'm trying to get at is that all these different challenges, that it's not only just the product, it's the overall ecosystem that you have to take through. And our phased approach is what helping us to actually get there by actually having this first trial. And now in 2015, by 2016, we're kicking off a project, again, with SafeNet to build a true connector to actually then be able to truly unlock the value of software licensing, to be able to actually get a subscription-based model, fee per case. So if you go back to going to selling to a hospital, instead of selling them $100,000 tower for their OR, which is against their capital budget, which is very tight, you can actually put the hardware there, right, and say, you use it, right, and we'll charge you like $500 per case, right? So then it becomes an operational budget charge to them, right? They love that. At the same time, they really feel that it's the pay for performance that they're being paid through is the same model that they're adapting to their vendors. So it becomes a truly partnership. So so far there's a really great reception from customers that actually have been introduced to this solution because they see the value in it to them as well. So it's a little bit of an eye chart, but basically what this describes is the current state. So the current state, like I mentioned, and there's our Oracle ERP where the orders get plugged in, and then we have this batch service that runs every night, extracts that order, and then it populates it to the EMS for Stryker. And then the box at the bottom, that's the device in the OR, and that's the one that gets the entitlement and gets the features activated on and off. The next state is where actually we build a true connector between EMS and Oracle ERP, and then not only sending things one way, but actually have a bi-directional communication as well. So this is when we truly track usage in the OR of what features have been used at what rate, populate those back to ERP, and then be able to actually generate invoices to the customers. So this, like I mentioned, took a lot of hand-holding and a lot of partnership with SafeNet. And I think the beauty of this right now is that this phased approach is showing value. It's, again, if you're trying to adopt this, you have to show small wins, right? And then at the same time, you don't buy those you can't choose. So basically, right now we're showing value by taking in something we can actually conquer, deliver results on it, and that would actually get the executive support for the second phase of the project, which is touching, God forbid, Oracle ERP in our company. So things what to watch for when implementing a software as a service, moving from a hardware manufacturer, especially as a medical device company, adoption. And I said adoption by the sales force because, I mean, for Stryker specifically, but I think it's general to other medical device companies, it's very sales-driven, right? It's very relation, have huge sales force that are in the field, that their job is sell, 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 right? It's a direct sales channel to hospitals and to surgeons. And the sales force, believe it or not, they themselves, right, if they don't adopt the technology or the solution, if it's a turn-off to them, it actually could kill your product. So people, as program managers, people in-house are very sensitive to the adoption of the sales force, our fellow Stryker employees, because if they don't talk about it, I mean, they're the only way to get this product out, right? So if they don't talk about it, they'd rather go off and sell, something else, right? A disposable pump set, right? Something they know it works, because, they service hospitals and customers so much. So the last thing they probably want to do is to go worry about technology issues, because even in hospitals, you have OR directors, you have physicians, and that's whom they're used to talk to, but now you have hospital IT departments as well. So the adoption by the sales force is something that's very particularly where, it's a very sensitive topic that we are going through, strategically to make sure that this solution gets adopted by showing the value to the sales reps themselves, not to the actual customer, believe it or not, as the ego some of us have every now and then. But then actually to actual sales rep, how does that help them, do their job? How does that free up more of their time that they actually go and sell more? The other, something that we're currently watching for is we have our customer care and customer support groups, where again, like everybody else around in the company, are used to getting calls and servicing boxes and issues, and they have how to troubleshoot a device. Why is it not working? Why is the capture system not working? And now when we throw in this software as a service on top, that's something that we're also working to make sure we actually mitigate, to be able to train them so they can understand, right? To be able to troubleshoot, where the issue, because now we have the ERP, EMS, OR device workflow, and to train them how they're able to actually service all that. So that's something, again, that we're currently looking after. And I guess the other thing is this manual process, like I just alluded to a while ago. This manual process that we have in place right now is causing a lot of, shouldn't say a lot, it's some issues to some of these departments that are trying to adapt to software as a service internally themselves, right? So making sure that, you partner with groups like accounting and finance, and as, traditionally, because I came in from an R&D, and you focus so much on the product, and you think, your product will be so awesome that it will sell itself, that everything else is figured out, right? But you don't really realize, that, somebody from accounting has to make sure that that customer is okay to sell to, right? Do some credit check, and then how somebody needs to turn a flag in the system that this, order has been received, right? So all these different elements in the ecosystem are very critical to the success of the actual solution, right? Not say call it a product, the overall solution. And to be able to have a successful transformation from a hardware manufacturer to a SaaS provider, you have to just go through those groups, right? And see each group what's in it for them, right? And have expertise. So as you go through all this, it's really important to have executive support, which goes hand in hand with the adoption as well. So The last thing I want to talk about, which is a little bit interesting, I mean, right now we take connectivity for granted, right? Especially when you look at devices and computer, the internet, that's like everywhere, saturating everything around us. Hospitals is a different beast, right? So, and hospital, just for is anybody here works in a hospital IT department? I didn't think so. Good. Hospital IT department is very, very, very sensitive. With HIPAA, hospitals could get a lot of trouble with any patient information hacking, right? So hospital IT are very, very protective. They require 100% control of every device that gets on their network. And hospital IT infrastructures are probably at least 5 to 8 years behind in what the current industry is. So those are challenges. So you can't just expect to walk into a hospital and say, hey, I have this device. It's a medical device, software, and don't worry about it. Just could you plug it in and make sure it's talks to the internet. And that would freak them out. So what really you need to do is to show what's in it for them, right? So I think when we started this, it was a big deal for us ourselves, and how God, now we're going to require our devices to be connected online to get this entitlement downloaded. And actually, we're happily surprised to see that if you show to a hospital IT department or hospital purchasing committee what's in it for them, right? They just like everybody else, right? They're same people want to make sure they run a profitable business, and they weigh the risks and the reward. And the rewards with having such a solution to them actually outweighs the risk. And it's not only, this is not going to be the first medical device that going to be online. A lot of other big capital equipment are connected online. They ping home, send usage logs and things like that. So the connectivity issue is something that you have to prepare yourself for these discussions. So to be able to have a successful discussion with a hospital IT about putting a device online, you got to make sure that the reason, that feature, that product is actually something that actually is rewarding to them, that they can actually overlook the risk that they would take by putting a device online. The other important part is not only by talking to hospital IT about the risk and the reward, is that the features themselves, right, that we actually tried in the first phase, the feature itself requires online connectivity by nature, right? So if a hospital is interested in that feature, in this product, that means that they understood that this is actually going to talk online. So this basically allows them to save some information back to their cloud. So that's the feature we went with as we go through the learning mechanism to be able to figure this one out. The last thing is that even there, we're actually working with SafeNet on this, what we call a darknet solution. When, just like the Viavi company has described it, we'll be able to have a sales rep through a device or a laptop to be able to actually download that entitlement themselves, then connect to the device through a hotspot and be able to deploy that solution to it. So all overall, I think I look at the other customer use cases, and I think we're really in infancy stages compared to everybody else. It's very exciting, and looking forward, I think, definitely being able to bring innovation and proven technologies in the consumer field back to healthcare. There is so much opportunity for us as consumers, as people who receive healthcare every day, as hospitals, as vendors, to not only just be profitable, but also to improve the system, right? We are going in there with this innovative solution to actually remove a lot of the inefficiencies, right? The high cost for healthcare right now is not because of the cost of the healthcare service itself, but actually of the inefficiencies in the system that actually become a burden. That's all I had for today. I think.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This was very interesting.